Stop here at the old home. That's where I was born.
No, you weren't. You were born over at the maternity hospital.
You want to go over there? There is no maternity hospital. Stop right here, Vic, someplace. You gonna take a picture of that old place? That isn't something? Anyway, this is where I grew up, right there in that home. Ever since I can remember, that's where things started. That's where I used to sleep in the old sleeping porch out on the corner of the house where there was no screen. Well, there was screens, but on the windows, and that's all. There was no windows other than that, and so we'd sleep. In the wintertime, we'd wake up and have to shake the snow off of our bed before we could get up because it was too cold to get up in with the snow all over us. And then
who did you sleep with?
And I slept in that there with Belva. Belva slept down in Claire. I don't remember where Claire was. Leland was down there. I don't know where Claire. I can't remember where Claire was sleeping at that time, because we didn't have the basement finished off until later on when we dug that out with by the old sewer gang, and that was when we had a hand controlled scoop about 2 feet wide, and we would have a long rope or a chain, I think like the long rope, attached to an old work plug that we had out with a horse out in the backyard, and we'd use that scoop to scoop out the dirt from underneath the house and scoop the dirt out beneath the house and pulled that, and that was pulled out with the horse. We don't have no tractor at that time or anything. That was all before. I don't think there was anybody had any tractors. I remember when I was just a little teeny kid. The first tractor that we ever had was the old John Deere that Clyde and Abe Barker had one, and when they had it going, I could hear them out in the fields. All we could hear is that old putt, 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 putt. That's all the tractor was sounding. That's I knew that they had their old John Deere going. Anyway, that's the home here again. Was where I grew up, where Leland grew up, where Belva grew up, and where Claire grew up. All of us there. Although Leland was gone early when he left to go to school at Utah State, and all the thing I can remember about that was that we would take Leland up to North Salt Lake in the car, and he'd get out and thumb the rest of the way to Logan. And
why? Why don't you just take him to Logan?
It was too far to have to drive back then. That was an all-day deal up and back. But this way you just drop him off and he could thumb, and that was no problem. A lot of people did that. And then of course right after that he went in the military, in the Navy, and so I don't really remember growing up with Leland hardly at all, because he was pretty much gone. There were just Belva and Claire and I in the home, and I was pretty much attached to Claire. Every Claire went, I went, until he got so much older he didn't want me around any longer. I was more of a problem than I was anything else. So anyway, Belva we used to sit around the piano there in that home, and we would sing, and Belva would play the piano, and I would I would sing songs with her, and we'd sing old things, songs like Old Ship, and I can even sing that today if I could remember all the words. Could not, but some of them are not there anymore. But another thing about this home that I remember was my dog Jitters. My first dog that I ever owned was good old Jitters, a little part bulldog and part, I don't know, mongrel, but he was my favorite dog, and he and I never went any place without going together. In fact, I even had tried to take Jitters to church with me, but they wouldn't let Jitters in the church, so he'd have to come home by himself. And then, there's the story that on Sunday morning, Jitters and I went out in the backyard just to go for a walk, which we did quite often, not because there was nothing but fields out there then. There was no homes or anything. There was only 2 or 3 homes on this street, 1250 West. The 3 homes right here were about the only ones here.
Not this one back here.
It was, the Swenson home was there, and the Meekum home was down there where
Keith Nelson lived.
Where's the Meekum home now?
Is that where Keith Nelson lived?
Yeah, it's where Keith Nelson used to live, and we're across the street from Jody and Cindy Davis. That old home is still there. Anyway, Jitters and I thought we'd go on a Sunday morning, we'd go for a walk. And we walked out through the fields here, and everybody in the family, everybody thought I was lost because they couldn't find him. And so they started looking and couldn't find me, so they even turned Sunday school out when everybody went looking for me. And all I was out here walking through the fields out behind the house, me and Jitters. And all I can remember is my Grandpa Brown, my dad's dad, Grandpa Brown, and some other guy in his old Model T Ford driving down the canal road. And me and Jitters was in the flume that went across the canal. Was on that, and that's where they found us. And oh, did I get a Scotch blessing from my grandpa from that time. And that was known all over town and talked about for a long time because they had to let Sunday school out. And I wasn't lost. I knew exactly where I was.
What other animals did you have here?
Oh, we had
Did you
sheep.
have a horse?
Yeah, we had a horse. You've seen that picture that I've got later on. It's up on there with me and the horse in front of the old barn out there. Both Clara and I had horses at that time. Well, and Leland had one too, and Leland had a mare that he was a prize to him, and he wanted to get a baby out of that mare, and so we got her all bred up and when the baby was born, Leland thought he had the cat's by the tail. That was the cat's meow, that baby running around out in the kraal out there by the old barn. And we used to watch that little colt run around and kick his legs up and down, feeling so good as he was growing up. And one morning we went out there and he was laying dead in the muck, and we could never really figured out. Leland said he figured that after talking to the vet that horse little colt probably had a ruptured blood vessel, and while it was running and kicking, and that's what killed it. Anyway, that just really broke Leland's heart. I've never remember seeing Leland crying because he lost that baby colt that he was so proud of. What else?
Tell them about the sewer gang.
Well, the sewer gang. We not only built the basement underneath this home. We pulled the dirt out with this scoop that I was telling you, and that's what. And the sewer gang was made up of all the Joneses. Was my dad, and Cliff Jones, and Ramey Jones, and Virgil Stedman, and Bill Parrington, and Irwin North. They were all the brothers and brother-in-laws that lived here in Taylorsville, and we called them the sewer gang because they actually built basements under our home, under Virgil and Audrey's home, and under Bill's home, Bill and Della's home there on 48th, and they've even done some under Grandma and Grandpa's home there where the museum is now. And we did one pulled the dirt out and built an under the basement type thing under Ramey's home there, where the Joneses live in the first ward now. Anyway.
No, that was Claudia and Gary's home.
Yeah, that was Claudia and Gary's home.
But Margie and Raymond's was next to that one.
Marvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
The white one.
yeah, that was the white one.
That's where the Nilsons lived.
Yeah. Anyway, what else was I going to tell you about while we live in here in this home? You asked me about animals. We had sheep. We raised sheep. I raised sheep, Suffolk, and took them to the fair over at the county fair every year. And we used to have, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so sheep that we had there. And one day we went out, and the one ewe was having some babies, and when she had the babies, all of her insides came out with the baby and was dragging around in the trail, his insides. Called old the veterinarian, old Dr. Forgot his name. What was his name? Thought I'd never forget his name. Came and looked at him, and he just got a bucket of warm water and washed those guts, those insides out that was dragging around like that, and pushed him back inside the sheep, and she was fine. Never had a problem after that. We had cows, milk cows here. We had at least 2 and sometimes 3 and 4 milk cows that I had to milk, and Claire milked, and Leland milked every morning, every night. And then we had to take them to the pasture down here by the river, out of the lane and down here across 4910 and down into the river, and that's where we'd leave them, and then have to go down and pick them up at night. We did that every day before school and after school, and I remember one day when I was really little, that Leland was taking the cows out of down the side of the lane here to the side of the house, and the cows were not moving along like I guess he thought they should, and he picked up a rock to throw at them like he had done so many times. Hit the cow in the leg and broke its leg. Oh, was my dad mad. Oh, was my daddy mad. He told Leland what he thought about that. Anyways, that was my experience. I had to, when milking the cows, had to milk them stinking cows every night and every morning, no matter whether it was cold or burning hot summer. We used to call them dingleberries. You know what a dingleberry is? That's frozen cow manure on the tail of a cow. Huh? And we'd sit down on that stool to milk that cow, and the cow would swing their tail back and hit you with that dingleberries on the side of the head, and that was torture. Yeah. We used to have cats, lots of cats out in the barn too, and when I'd milk the cow, I'd always have to feed the cats the milk too, and I'd just take the cow's udder and squeeze the milk, and it'd just spray across the room, and the little cat would sit there with his mouth open and catching the milk as I'd spray it to him out of the udder out of the cow. Anyway, there was more than once that we used to take the milk up to the house and we'd have to strain it. We'd strain it to make sure that there was nothing got into it. Of course, there was more than once that the cow had put her foot in the bucket of milk, and I'd never tell my mother that the cow had stepped in the milk, but we'd just strain the milk good, put it in the fridge, and then the cream would come to the top, and then we used to skim off the cream off of the top of the pan of milk, and that's what we used to make the cream for the ice cream and for all stuff like that. Because we tried to collect as much of the cream as we possibly could for other things. Like my mother used to make bread every day, and she'd put cream in that too.
Did she ever make butter?
Oh yeah, she'd make butter many times that I'd have to do that, pushing up and down that churn to try to pump the butter to get big enough until it turned to butter.
So were all your siblings born in the South? Lived here when they were born?
Yep. Let's see. No, Belva was born. No. Leland was born when mom and dad lived down on 48 South, about where the old state center is now. And Belva was born right in front of where Clyde Barker's home is. They used to live in that home right there next, just to the east of Clyde Barker's. I don't know who lives there now.
Where Mike and Janet lived.
Yeah, Mike and Janet lived there for a while too. But that's where Belva was born, and my dad says that she was born out on the street because they didn't get her to the hospital soon enough. But Belva was born on the street out in front of the house. But Claire and I were born over at the Cottonwood Maternity Hospital in Murray, the same place that Mike was born. When, of course, Laurie was born down in California. What else did we have here at this home? Oh, there's lots of things. There's another story I'd like to tell you about this home. We used to have great big box elder trees around the house. There's none of them are there now. And there was one, because the side of the house here were just to the side of the front windows there was a great big box elder tree there, and then there was one in the back by where the garage is. The garage had one great big tree back there, and we used to have a swing that we'd have on one of those branches of that tree. But the swing was not a regular swing. All it was a rope with a big metal ring on the end of it, and we could get that thing swinging clear from one side of the yard to the other, because we'd put the rope as high up into the tree as we could get it, so that have a real long way to swing, a big swing back and forth. And there, like it was just a metal ring, and we'd hang by it, put our feet in the ring, and then swing back and forth upside down. And I remember once when Claire was doing that, about the top of the swing, he lost his footing, and off the thing he come and landed clear out in the garden. Didn't break anything though, if I remember right. Shook him up a little bit. But anyway, that was a lot of good times was here on this home. We had horses in the back, and in the wintertime we would always hook the horses up to sleighs, and somebody would ride the horse and the other would beat the sleighs, hook the sleighs one behind the other, and pull them all over town, up and down this lane, up and down this street. I remember I was on a sleigh once with Dick Gerard, and he was on the sleigh behind me, and I was on the sleigh in front of me, and I fell off the sleigh, and Dick went right over top of my head with his sleigh. Thought I'd cut my head off. That happened right there in front of the old home where the Swensons lived, right
That
there.
metal ring
Huh?
Would they be metal?
The ring was about that big around, about a foot wide, a foot diameter. So you could hang from that ring and swing. You just to hold on it with your hands.
Oh, I mean the sled wasn't the.
Oh, and a sleigh, just a regular metal sleigh, yeah.
No, and it went over your
Oh
head.
yeah, sled, metal runner. Yeah, I thought he had done me good, and I kept jumping up and filling my head, and I remember saying, well, there's no blood, so I guess I'm okay.
In other words, he's hard-headed.
Let's see, what else about this old home? It was heated by a coal stove. I mean, we had coal, this regular coal delivered, and we'd put it in the stove. And we had a stove in the kitchen that my mom cooked on. It was with coal in it, and then we had one in the front room there, just as you come into the front room, there's the room right around the corner. We used to have a pipe that went up through the roof for the smoke to go with, but those two places are what we heated the home with just regular coal, and wood we'd put in there too, but coal would always burn longer, so we'd always use coal if we could. And then I remember very vividly the day that we had dug a hole on the side of the house and put a great big barrel down into the hole around there, and that's where we filled it full of had a pipe that stuck up out of the ground from the barrel, and we'd have a guy come and fill that up with coal oil every so often, and it was the coal oil we had a furnace put into the downstairs, and that coal oil would run into that furnace, into that old stove, and boy, that was a change to have warm air coming out of a pipe, out of a vent in the house. And that's about the time that we put windows up in the sleeping porch out there, because we could put some heat in there too. Anyway,
So the sleeping porch is where
well,
Grandma slept, that back bedroom?
Yes. And back where Grandma was and where she was when she died. Actually, that was the sleeping porch.
Right.
What else about that old home? That barn out in the back was a 2-story barn. We used to have all the hay in the top of the barn, and we used to have to throw it down to the mangers in the bottom for the cows and the calves and the sheep. We had another shed that went off to the side of the barn that we called the chicken coop. It was like an old chicken coop, but that's where we had the sheep all the time, in that chicken coop.
You didn't ever have chickens?
Oh yeah, we had chickens running around the yard all the time, laying hens. They had nests all over the yard. I remember going out and gathering eggs, and you'd never know where you're going to gather them because they were all over the yard, wherever the hens would decide they wanted to make a nest. And that's what we raised we had raised the chickens too. We get little chicks and raise them up to make them laying hens, and had roosters, old male roosters some of them were mean son of a guns. They'd chase me around and peck my pants and peck me on that. But that was a happy day when we'd take that old rooster and lay his head across a log and take a hatchet and cut his head off.
And then he'd run around for a while.
And then my dad we'd kill maybe 2 or 3 of them every year or so, and my dad had just cut their heads off, and I remember just flopping around until they finally did quit flopping. And then we'd have to pick all the feathers off of them and take them in the house, and Mom would make chicken dinners out of them. That was pretty good. I enjoyed those chicken dinners because some of those chickens needed to be made chicken dinners. Yeah, that was good. We never bought eggs. We always had raised our own eggs in that house.
How big was your dad's garden?
The whole south side of the house, all the way back was all garden. And at this end of it, we always used to raise the cantaloupe and the watermelon, and all the other vegetables was out near the other end. We'd have everything. Was there corn? And that's where I always thought my dad was going to die, out in that, laying on because more than once we'd find Mom would be out the door, Cloyd, where are you? Because she didn't know where he was and couldn't find him. And finally we'd go out there and find him laying in the cornfield, and laying between a row of corns, nice and cozy. And he'd just lay down, go have a nap.
I remember that.
Huh?
I remember him doing that.
I thought my dad was going to die when out in that garden. And then the day after my dad had a stroke, and I wanted to take him back here to visit the home and the garden and the house in the back and see what had been done to it since it was in the hospital. And boy, he tell you what, he reached over and got a hold of my steering wheel on that car and about wrecked me. Kept saying, would not let me turn into the yard. That's one place he would not let me take him.
Mm-hmm.
That and to the cemetery where we buried Mom. Because we buried Mom while he was in the hospital, but after having had his stroke. And that home right there was where Mom was sleeping in the bedroom here in front, in the back, and Dad was sleeping in the bedroom up here in the front. And Mom had something happen to her, and in our sleeping porch back in there, and she wasn't doing very well, and my dad got up to help her and had a stroke, and he was laying right there in the hallway in the house, and Mom was trying to get up in the middle of the night to go find out what was wrong with Cloyd. And Belva came in and found my dad laying on the hallway there in the house, and my mom trying to crawl, couldn't walk at that point, crawl out to where my dad was. That's the way Belva found him. It wasn't too long after that, my dad went to the hospital, and wasn't long after that Mom died right there.
The day Darren got his mission call.
Huh?
The day Darren got his mission call.
Darren got his mission call, yep. What else, dear? You remember about all that old home?
Turkeys.
What? Oh, dear. Oh, dear, the turkeys. My dad, we had a turkey hutch in the far back. Had a little pasture behind the barn, and we had a turkey hutch to the side of it. A turkey hutch was kind of like a chicken coop, but it was open on the sides, and then we just wire around it, and it was built so that the bottom was about maybe a foot off of the ground, so that there was the turkeys, when they'd do their thing, it'd just fall through the wire and into the ground. We'd have to clean it out that way. But my dad had about a dozen, maybe half a dozen turkeys out there in that hutch, and he raised them every year. And he got up on a cold winter morning when it had snowed during the night, got up there, and all I can, this is my mind's eye, I can see it, this is vivid as it was yesterday. That whole backyard was almost red with blood from the turkeys in the snow. Dogs had got into the turkeys and just killed them all. And they were flopping around and in that snow, and the dogs were chasing them and trying to, which they did, killed most of the, if I remember right, they killed, if not all of them, but in my mind's eye, all I think I remember about it, Mona, is just the whole backyard was just almost red with turkey blood. Oh, it was my dad. He was so mad.
Whose dogs were there? You don't know.
Huh?
Whose dogs were they?
I don't know, but he got 2 of them with a 22. Shot them both.
It's a good thing Ozzy wasn't out there, man.
Then this is where I had Prince too. Prince is the dog that I had here first thing after Jitters. After Jitters was gone, why then I got another dog by the name of Prince. It was almost looked like a collie. And between a collie, I was a mixed dog. And that was I loved that dog. That dog was one of my favorite dogs today. I hope that I can meet that dog on the other side of the veil. Hope he remembers me, Prince. And my Grandpa Jones called one day on the phone and asked if Prince was missing, and anyway, somebody had shot Prince, and he was up there laying at Grandpa Jones's place. He called us, and I remember going up there and seeing Prince laying on the side of the driveway there. Oh, I cried and cried and cried when that happened. But I found out who did it, and I served in the bishopric with him later on.
Ron Peterson?
Yep, Bishop Peterson's the one that shot the dog. I don't know for sure. I didn't ever find out for sure whether he's the one, but George Tarbox is the one that told us who is the one that did it. He and Ron were just like brothers. Anyway, that was also living at that home when I got Specs. And you know the story about Specs, when we had the sheep over at the county fair, and we stayed over there a lot and slept over there with the sheep. We'd sleep on top of the barns over at the county fair in Murray. And walking home, we'd walk from the county fair home. We'd walk from here to Murray. And coming home one day, while we were just on 48th and just off of State Street, and this dog started following us. And of course, I went over and petted the dog, and they petted and called the dog, and the dang dog followed us all the way home. And, oh, my mother was not very happy with me that I'd brought that dog home. And to this day, I still don't know how she ever found out who the owner of that dog was. I know she found out through Beulah Iyer. And Beulah Iyer would live down on the road, on that little house right next to where Mildred grew up. And Beulah told her about the users, and the users was the one that owned the dog in Murray. And so my mom called Mrs. User on the phone and told her that I had brought their dog home. And Mrs. User asked my mom, said, well, does that boy love that dog? She said, he's already sleeps with him. She says, well, if he would take good care of that dog, he'd tell him he can have him, keep him. So that was Specs. My dad did not like Specs, but every place he went in that old pickup truck, that old plumbing truck of his, that van, he was sitting on the driver's seat, and Specs was always in the passenger seat wherever they went. but my dad didn't like specs.
Yeah.
What else, dear?
Just where you broke your arm.
Yeah, that's where I was living here when I broke my arm. That was over at Gerard's, and the old over where Dwayne lived, and we were riding on the back of the horse, and I was on the back of the horse with Glenn Iyer. I was riding double behind him, and Glenn was old scout, and he went running down the lane and took off real quick one time when I was sitting on the back of the horse with him, and I rolled right off the back of the horse and onto the ground and landed on my arm and broke it. Anyway, what else was there about that home?
It's the only home you lived in until you got married.
Yep. In fact, after we got married, we lived in that home.
For about 2 weeks is all.
Not 2 weeks, was it? Yep. We went downstairs. We moved finally after the sewer gang had dug the basement for the house. We had a bedroom downstairs that Clara and I slept in. We had 2 single beds, or what are they called, twin beds downstairs in that bedroom. And that's where Clara and I slept.
That's where you got your first shower.
We put a shower in. That was a luxury. Had the shower we had made a shower downstairs. It was kind of out in the open. There wasn't much. There's no door on the shower. It was just a place where my dad did build some walls around it, but that was all. That's where we showered.
You didn't put a shower curtain up?
No shower curtains. We just holler upstairs and say, "Well, I'm showering. Don't come down the stairs yet until I get out of the shower." But that's where my dad showered, and that's where I showered, where Claire showered all the time. I don't ever remember my mother showering. My mother always was in the bathtub. And Belva. And my dad. My dad was getting that bathtub. We never get him out. He's Clyde, you've been in there for an hour. It's time for you to get out. That was my mother. Clyde this, Clyde that. And my mother was to my dad, her name was Sweet Pea. That's what he called her all the time, my Sweet Pea.
And he'd just laugh when she'd yell at him like that.
Oh yeah, that was just everyday occurrence. That was not something you get worried about. Floyd that was just something he heard all the time. What else happened there? I remember with Clara when Clara was diagnosed with rheumatoid fever.
Rheumatoid.
Yeah, rheumatoid fever, and he had to stay in bed all the time. He couldn't do anything, so we moved his bed outside here under this old box elder tree that I was telling you about. We'd had his bed out here on the lawn. That's where he'd slept. Stayed there during the day and stayed there during the night. Oh, I got to tell a story. Maybe I better not.
Why not?
Well, you think that your grandpa was a saint, but you find out maybe he wasn't. I was tried to smoke some cedar bark once, and I was I don't remember who it was, me and probably some of my friends. And anyway, I come back here. Claire was still laying in the bed, and I was up there sitting, and he could smell it on me. And he says, I said to Claire, I said, I wonder how those onions out there taste. I knew exactly why I wanted to eat an onion. So I could kill the taste, or kill the breath. Anyway.
That's where you and Claire built your boat too.
Yeah, we built a boat here. We did. Build a boat. I'll have right from scratch. We get the frame and bent the. We used to, when we put the wood on the frame for the boat, we'd have to wet it down so you could bend it around to so that it'd come into the front of make the what do you call it? The front of the boat where you put them together into the little curve that the boat has in the front of it. And that's how we made that, by slowly making the wood, getting the wood wet, and then you'd bend it, and then we'd nail it down, and then we covered the whole boat in fiberglass. Oh, I remember putting that old fiberglass on there. That stuff was itchy, itchy, itchy. You'd have put the fiberglass down, and then you'd put the resin over top of it to make it, and then it'd go hard. That was our boat. And
Do you remember that boat?
Red boat.
Yep, the red boat.
The red boat, yep. We had some good times in that red boat. That was made right there, and right there where that car's sitting right there is where we made that boat. Right, almost in the exact spot. What else?
They had that. You had that boat for a long time because you did it when you were.
Yeah, we were just kids. I was a kid then. Claire
Yeah.
wasn't. Claire was 6 years older than me, and
But we still had it when Laurie was old enough to know about it.
Take it to Yellowstone with us.
oh yeah, we went to Yellowstone more than pulled that thing to Yellowstone 100 times. Claire used to take it to Flaming Gorge every year when he was in the Fifth Ward, when he was a bishop, even. They'd take that. Didn't he have that boat then? Seemed to me like he
We're
did.
going to Flaming Gorge.
Yeah,
Well, we used to go to Rockport all the time with it.
Rockport. Yep.
And then Belva and Ralph had a boat too.
Yeah.
Where you want to go now?
Well, let's go.
You want to go to Grandma's house? She can talk about it for a minute.
What
Do what?
about the church house?
Okay.
Oh,
Down
boy.
to the church.
Well, yeah, let's go down by the church, I guess. The next one on the road. I wanted to take you over on the old canal road, so you could get a picture of that, of where the flume was that I was, where they found me when I was, me and Jitters.
When they had to let Sunday school out.
Yeah.
I don't know though. They're working there.
Down this street right here that we're going now, just down that little hill, that's where we used to make all of our, that's a, so we gotta stop here.
Yeah. Maybe it's not a good idea.
Around here on
They've got her down. Victor, pull around and pull back into the parking lot, will you? This is the old church. This is the church that I grew up in when I was a kid. I mean, this is where we went to church. This was our church. Go all the way out the back, then by that, clear out by the back. The gate was open out there, so we can.
Will these people be upset?
the, yeah, I don't know if they'll let you stay in here.
What?
I don't know if they'll let you stay in here.
Oh, I don't know whether maybe they won't.
Just pull over there by the new.
Yeah, just pull over there by the gate someplace and park. This here where we're parked now is the back of the old church on 48 South and 1250 West. And this place where we're parked now, where where the parking lot now and all the grass is now was all well, this was a parking lot on the far south end of it, but where the grass is was all trees. There was trees in rows all the way across. Oh, how many trees was there, Mildred? Lots of them. And it was just a big, dark, shaded area where we'd have our ward parties and everything in the back. And we used to have just great times out in that with the scouts and the Aaronic priesthood and parties and the young women and out there in the back. And we used to always remember we'd play a game that was called Pom Pom Pull Away. And it was a game where you'd try to get from one place to the other end that this is always in the dark. And there was trees all over in there. And so you had to be careful when you try to run from one end to the other without getting caught by the ones in the middle who was trying to pull you away. And if you got caught, then you were in the middle with the rest of them until finally everybody would get caught. Well, one night we were out here playing, and Richard Mackey was one of the kids that was out here playing, and we were playing Pom Pom Pull Away, and finally Richard come up missing, and nobody knew where Richard was. Anybody seen Richard? Where'd he go? Anybody go? Did he go back in the church? We didn't. So finally we started looking, found him laying on the ground out here next to a tree. He'd come running across there as hard as he could and run dead in the tree and cold conked him. He was out like a light. We thought he was dead. But then that was Richard. It was one story after another about Richard that way. Another story was when we were coming down that road, 1250 West, that little hill. We used to get going on a pretty good clip on our bikes. And we'd come down here and make the turn into the back of the church there where that sidewalk is, on the back of the church. There was a tree right on the edge there, and we'd come down and slow down enough to make the turn, but Richard didn't. He came, look at his split, nailed that tree head on.
Well, the thing I was thinking about was when your dad was the janitor
Yeah.
here, and you were.
Yeah, he was the janitor of this church, and he was the sole caretaker of the church inside and out. And he and I were the ones that did most of the work. Claire used to help some when he was way older, but there's many times that, I've swept the amusement hall, I've dusted every place in that building, every place. In fact, I used to go up into that classroom up above the amusement hall on the east side of the building here, and I used to hide from my dad sometimes and look out the window to see if I could see Mildred across the street at her house. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't.
And back here on the corner, on this southeast corner, down in the basement was the kitchen down there, and they used to make all kinds of things down there for food, and have big banquets down there in the banquet hall, we called it. Oh, there's often times they would make pies, apple pies and cherry pies, that sisters at the Reef Society make them, and then they'd sit them out on those shelves on the windows and for them to cool off. And we used to run off with them. More than once, finally we got caught doing that. They weren't very happy with us. Oh, that church was...
There's lots of memories in that church.
Lots of memories in that church where we had dances, gold and green balls. That's where we used to have movies, see movies upstairs in the
Friday night.
Friday night movies would come from everybody in the ward and come there, and Shelby Cook could set up his 16 millimeter projector and show a movie of some kind. We'd sit there, and that was the first time I held your mother's hand, was I in this one of those movies. Remember that, dear?
I do.
And that's sitting there and watching that movie in the movies in the upstairs in the
How
cultural.
old were you when you held her hand? Still in grade school?
Oh yeah, we were still. She was in 5th or 6th grade. I don't know if we were in junior high then, were we or not?
I think we probably were, because every Friday night was a movie.
Yeah.
We didn't go to town to go to the movies. We'd come over here to the church.
And there were some fun movies. They're most of the time where they were good westerns of Hopalong Cassidy and Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and those were they. And oh, I didn't tell you, there are lots of stories about Dwayne Gerard. He lived in the home just north of us there on Fort, up there at the old home. He lived on the far, well, there was, this 1250 West used to be called Gerard Street. That was the name of the street before it became 1250 West. And it was named Gerard Street because Tom Gerard built those 3 homes that were right there together. Leonard Gerard's home, the old Harrison home, and our home. They're the 3 homes right together.
Where Roberts lived.
Where Roberts lived, yeah. And that was the homes that Tom Gerard built, and so that became Gerard Street. But anyway, Dewey lived in the one farthest north, and I lived in this one that was our home. We used to yodel back and forth to each other, Dewey and I. We'd have to, and Dewey could still yodel up until the day he died. I could try. I couldn't do it, but Dewey never. He still could yodel, and it was just and we used to. That's the way we used to communicate back and forth. When it was time to get together, we would yodel to each other.
Reed got in on that.
Yeah, Reed was in on that too. Yes, he was.
He would yodel.
And
Huh?
Why don't you just holler back and forth? Why do you have
but
to
Dewey
yodel?
and I used to play cowboys and Indians all the time between the 3 homes there and in between. And Dewey was always Gene Autry, and I was always Roy Rogers. And Roy Rogers always would win.
Is that it for here?
Dewey and I were just like brothers. We just grew up together. I was 2 years older than him, no?
Yeah.
And you'd never know it because we were attached at the hips, the 2 of us. Always went and then my name, and then the story up there was when I was a kid, was where I got the name of Brown Dog from, was when I was out one day. I was up on up the road there a ways, and we were talking about giving our dogs a haircut and stuff like that, and so I took the sheep shears. There were shears that we used to shear the wool off of the sheep and trim them get them ready for the state fair and the county fair. And took the shears and cut my own hair laying on the ground over the irrigation ditch, and cut my hair and cut it off here in the front and was a little bit longer in the back, and my mother tried to fix it so it was looking, but she was not very happy with me. But one of the guys in the ward here used to call me, well, I used to always have what we called a bulldog haircut, and that was a flat top, and that was my haircut when I was growing up. I always had a flat top haircut, but it was called a bulldog haircut. So when I cut my own hair, somebody gave me the name of Brown Dog, And I was brown dog ever since, and still am today to many. Dewey Gerard, we used to call me on the phone and talk to me just days before he died. He's always calling me Dewey. He was the only one of the few that kept calling me brown dog. And that was probably one of the last things that he ever said to me, he called me before he died, was brown dog. And that's my email address today, LD Brown Dog. Anyway, brown dog is brown dog. Now where do we want to go? Go down. Well, I told you where we used to take the cows, down there by the river. We used to, down at the river
Want to
bottoms.
go up that way?
Go up, go the other way, Vic. Turn left. And go over 4910. Over that way. And we're this 4910 now that we're going on now is called Pinewood Drive, yeah. Marinwood, yeah, this is Marinwood. Pinewood's up, yeah, right in front of your house, isn't it? So this is Marinwood, and this is the street here where we used to take the cows every morning and night. Cecil Albrechtson down on the corner where they lived, that's where they had a dairy there, had several cows. He used to bring the cows from that way up down this street, and I used to bring my cows from our place, and we'd go down this street, and oftentimes we'd go together. Down over here to 1130. And then 11:30 we'd go south to the old to the pastures. That's where the pastures were, down on the river bottoms. That's down 11:30 here, where we're going now. This is where I always took the cows. Never had a problem with the cows going down this road. They knew where they were going. Never had a problem with them. Just as you go down the hill toward where the radio station is now. Was. Right here on the hill. Okay, stop right here for a second, Vic. Off to the left was where I used to go down the hill, on an angle downhill to the river bottoms. And the old Albrechtson home was here, and this garage here was part of it. And we used to go down the hill, across the bridge, and the old mill race. And the mill race, as soon as I got across the mill race, there was a gate. I had to open the gate. And the cows would go down and stand on the bridge. The bridge was about almost wide enough you could drive a car across it to get over the mill race. And the mill race was full of water, lots of water in that mill race all the time when I was a kid. And we used to, so when I'd have to, the cows would get to the gate and then stand there on that bridge and wait for me to walk across the bridge with them. And open the gate so they could get into the pasture, and the darn cows would never leave me room to walk across there. And more than once I was trying to walk across the edge of the cows, the side of the cows on the edge of the bridge, and I remember there was one spot that the boards weren't, they were not all even. There was a place where there was a gap in the end, and I'd step in that hole every time and fall in the river. Fall in the in the mill race. I've done that more than once. Open the gate and then let the cows in, and then when it was coming home at night, the cows would always be waiting there at the gate to come home because they want to go home to get milked. That's what they always wanted to do, be milked.
So is the mill race what they called the river right there? Or
No, the river was down below it.
So what was the mill race?
Oh, the mill race was a kind of a canal that came out of the North Jordan Canal over here. Well, that's kind of hard to say. It came out. It came at the falls, down where the falls were. That's where the mill race started. Remember the old falls there? We used to go down there and
Ride
have
the
parties.
horses.
Yeah, we did.
The falls we used to ride the horses
Yeah,
to?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
down there, and that's where the mill race started. It was, and then it was a river that come along the edge of, it was actually kind of where the homes are on Morningside is. It went right along the edge of them, and it came across. There's still places where the mill race is, and the
This
mill race
park is called
well,
the Mill Race Park.
yeah. Victor, back up a little bit, can you? Is there anybody behind us? Back up and turn down the lane going. Yeah, back up, turn around here.
Down the lane where
Turn down where by.
Christy Overson went.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good. You're good. Turn down that, whatever that lane's through. What's it called now?
Stanley Glen.
Huh? Stanley Glen.
Glen.
Yeah, that's that. Turn down that, and you can go all the way down there to the end where that. What's down there?
Somebody's kid's racing car.
Keep going all the way down. You can go down there. Oh my goodness, that's what it is too. You can't get down there, or can you? No. Anyway,
Maybe go down to Oak Hill.
anyway, the mill race runs right along here where these trees are. This mill race, it's still there. It's still there. That's why I thought maybe we'd come down this way, but it's still there. And it goes right along here. It goes right over here, and this is where it dies now. But it went all the way over and across along the side of 48 South, and it went under 48 South there, right below the hill, going down what we call Robinson's Hill. Just there's a bridge right there at the bottom of that, where the mill race went under it, and then it went over. It went over. The race went over, and then back into the river, over that in that area, and so it went all the way across here from the canal here, along here, and this is where they used to use that to water all these pastures. Was out of the mill race, and then of course everybody watered out of the mill race as far as that goes. But you can't see it from where we're at here now. But down there where that sign is, it says whatever it says. That's no trespassing or something. Private property. That's where the mill race is still there. That ditch is still in those trees there. Go back now out, Vic, and do that Danny thing. You can back up into. That's Brent and Christy Overson's home right there in front of us.
That one.
Right here. This one. This is where Hatches lived.
This
Bishop
is where Barclays lived.
Is that Barclays now?
This one was Hatch.
This is Hatches here, yeah.
But they're no longer together.
She didn't either one.
Go back down toward the
What?
She doesn't live there either.
No.
I don't know who lives there.
See, there was no homes here. This was all open. It was all open.
And the house that he was talking about, the Albrechtsons, they lived over there on 1250 for years, and then they built a
They
home
built a home right there.
later on. When Cecil was growing up, it was over there.
Where on 1250?
Huh?
Where on 1250?
It's right in the corner.
Right on the corner there,
1250, my old home.
where Grandpa and Grandma Brown,
That was their home.
that's where Cecil lived when we moved out here.
People says that Kingston's about a bunch of these homes
All
too.
these right through here are all Kingston. All three of those.
Jeez, you're kidding me. Okay, can you go? Whoa, let's see, what?
This was in the park.
Holy mackerel.
What?
I thought you could see the old mill race from here. It's not. It's back here. It's back here to the.
Oh, yeah, there is one right
Let's see, Victor, slow down here. It's right here. It's right here.
here. There's another road up here, maybe we could.
What's this right here?
Oh, there's a canal right here.
Where?
Right here.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's the old mill race right there. That's the old mill race. They still water out of that. Some people have got
Yeah,
irrigation.
when we walk down to the park this way, we've seen water in
Yeah.
there.
That's the old mill race. That's where it goes. They used to go switchback and go clear back across and down in. The water used to go back into the Jordan River. That's it. That's it right there. Many times we.
So where would you actually leave the cows?
What?
Where would you actually leave the cows? Down here?
Yeah, they were in the pasture between. Over here to the a little bit further up. The way was this. Well, all of this to the right side of the road, or where we're at now, was all open pasture, and it was fenced off. And David, my uncle David, owned a big piece of property, a big piece of that pasture that went from the gate there that I was talking about, clear to the river. And the river was the one side of it, and the mill race was the other side of the north and the east. I mean, the east and the west side of the pasture. And look at the quail. Anyway, we used to go down there, and the Murphys lived in the old home there there was just off the side of where I had to take the cows. And Gary Murphy and Raymond Murphy and the Mantellas and me and Reed and all of them used to come down here oftentimes, and we'd go skinny dipping in the river and the mill race down here. There's nothing but there's no homes around here at all. No homes at all.
That was when I grew up.
Huh?
When I grew up, there was no homes down
Yeah.
there.
Anyway, that's the mill race. Anyway, that's where it is, right there. Okay, now where? Look at the quail. Look at the river. Kingston's dome down there too?
No. Just those three, I believe. This is the old mill race lane right here.
The old mill race
Yeah.
lane.
That's all dead end down there.
This is where Charlie Todd lived. Like your
Right there.
grandma's.
That's where them people live now. Where Charlie Todd lived and where Cal and Valerie lived.
Here's your grandma's. How was he related to you?
Who?
Charlie Todd. Your grandma's.
Charlie Todd's dad was my grandma's brother.
Browns.
Well, the first home we lived in is right down here. The first apartment we had.
Yep, right here in the old Vandenacker home.
Which one?
I don't know if it's still here, is it? Old Pop Van's place. That's
This is where Anita Lund lives.
this has to be it.
Now that's it.
This is where Anita Lund
Yeah,
lives.
Yeah.
it's where the Lunds live. But I think that's where the old home was.
And
Yeah.
we had a basement apartment in there.
That one. And then the old, I mean, the original, that's where Pop Van was when we lived there. But they also had owned the home where the Richardsons are now.
This is about 4900 south and 1130 west.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we lived when Mike was born.
Yep.
Was in that basement apartment.
There was the old Evans home was back here, was the only one that were, these homes were all got, there were no homes here at all other than that, and the Swenson home was right there. This was all open area here to the, on the left side of the road here. And the only thing was the old home right back there where the Richardsons are, where Ed, Cat,
And the we'd come over here and go down behind these houses.
oh yeah, down here. Go down here, Vic. This is Jerusalem Lane.
This is where Kylie's boyfriend lives.
That's right. I'll show you where it is. This is the old home right there. That's the old Vandenacker home. And then they built this. Yep. And this is where Carol and Jim Sturzer are.
This is Warnock's. The next one's Sturzer.
Huh?
This one's Warnock's. This one's Sturzer's.
I thought that's where Sturzer was. Right there. Well, this must be where Trend is then. In that home there. Or it could be this home now. I'm not sure. I don't know which one he is now. His name is Trent. Kylie's boyfriend. Or whatever he is. But anyway, this hill right here, where these homes are now, that was our sleigh riding hill. This was down here to the old sleigh riding hill. Oh, how many times have we done this coming down that hill right there? Sleighing up, getting there behind the old Vandenacker home. Down that hill, all the way down here to the bottom. And there used to be a great big pond. Water. If you go straight, you can up here. Well, maybe not. But right here, right straight ahead of us, where this road dead ends, right over here in these trees, to the left of that, on the south side of that home, that's where the mill race ends now. Much to the consternation of a lot of people. But one of the local guys put an end to it. Anyway, there was a pond. Let me tell you about this. There was a pond right here at the bottom of the hill, just next to the mill race. The mill race went right through where all these trees are and these homes are here on the right-hand side of this road that we're on. And that pond down there is where we used to freeze over in the wintertime. That's where we used to go ice skating all the time. Remember that, dear? We used to ice skate on that. I remember it was Lyman Powell got his hands run over by the skates one day and cut his hands right there with a metal skate off. I thought he had cut his fingers right off.
Yeah.
Remember we used to go.
This was our winter.
This is our winter retreat.
Yeah.
Winter retreat.
Between sledding and skating.
Yep. Yeah, we did lots of things here on the Vandenacker Hill. That's what it was called. And look at it now. Just look at it now. All homes. Pop Van would turn over in his grave if he saw this.
Those are Richardson's, I think.
See that hill right over there?
That's it right there.
That's the hill. That's the famous sleigh riding
Back a
hill.
little bit so you can get a picture.
That's the famous sleigh riding hill that you see over through there.
Of course, it was longer and it was
Yeah.
more sloped than that
All
one
these
is
homes,
now.
when they've landscaped these homes, they've filled it in a little bit here, and so it's not it doesn't have as long a run. Well, we get going pretty good clip down here, down that, but we'd always have to walk back up it. Sometimes that wasn't easy in the wintertime.
Especially when you had your snow boots and your leggings and your
And carrying your sleigh.
carrying your sleigh. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, look at the homes back in there. Just look at them. Where does young Jim live now? He's one of these homes, isn't he? Bishop Sturzer?
He's down there. Do you know where Matt Sturzer lived?
Isn't it
This
one of
is-
these on these
this
homes right
is
here?
it.
I thought on the hill. That's where Laurie and Brad are right there. So this is not where Carol and Jim Sturzer lived?
That's the Warnocks.
Oh, it is? Jeez. I didn't know that. Victor's friend.
Yeah, we're buddies.
So once you left this place here where Mike was born, then you went right from there to California? Where else did you live?
No, we went to Keddington's apartments.
By Thomas.
You did?
Yes, we lived in.
Well, I know we lived in Kennington, but that's where we went after
After the basement.
after the basement of Van den Ackers.
Yes.
Up there is where I used to. Your mother would really get mad at me because I'd never come in the house at night. I was always out in the coops shooting rats. You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, boy. Rats in that old coop, there were hundreds of them. And I used to up there, I had a flashlight mounted to the side of my 22. My 22 was not 22 shells, we'd have buckshot. Buckshot in them, and that's where we used to go there, right there. Up there on that hill right there. That's the old Keddington home. That's the Lowell Ties home. That's Lowell's home. That's where Lowell and Edna lived before, and then Edna died. Lowell died. That's Ralph and Warren's dad, and then Edna remarried Mr. Keddington. What was his first
Grandpa
name?
Harry is what they used to call him.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. And
But
then, and we lived on the east side of that place.
Yeah,
That's where Darren and Patty lived too.
Yeah,
yes.
where Darren and Patty lived when she left, when she threw him out. And then there was where that home where the Joneses are, where Cheryl and Nathan are. There was the old home there, the little home. that they had there.
Yeah,
and,
that Betty and Warren built after
Yeah.
they got married.
and the chicken coop was behind that. And anyway, I used to spend a lot of time in that coop shooting rats. Never seemed to get ahead of them though, Megan. I used to have more rats, and I could.
That
Okay.
was a nice little apartment.
Yeah,
I liked that place.
That's where I was doing all. Where I was going to school.
Yeah.
Where I was going to university. That's where we had the shark in the fridge, wrapped up in the fridge.
Yes.
That me and Mike Elzinga was
Dissecting.
dissecting. Thank you. On the kitchen table. When they were sitting there, me and Mike Elzinga was sitting at that table, and Mom and the kids were in bed, and I got
Kids,
him.
there was only one.
Was only Sean. I
Mike.
mean,
Mike.
Mike. Yeah, that's right. And got a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and it was the county sheriff. And he asked me if I was Larry Brown, and I said, yes, I am. He said, well, I have a warrant for your arrest. And I said, what? And Mike Elzinga and I tried to tell the guy that he had the wrong Larry Brown. And finally he agreed with us that, I mean, he could see that. Finally he could see that he had the wrong one, but he had my name, he had a warrant for my arrest, and later on I found out that the one he lived down in West Jordan was a Larry Brown, and what he had done is he had got a ticket, a traffic ticket, and never appeared to pay for it. And so they had a warrant out for him. And I about got it.
So from here you went to California.
Yeah,
Yes.
we went to California. Yep.
That's where we found you.
That's where you found me.
Oh boy, did we ever. Okay, Vic, go straight down and let's I was just kind of curious if where the mill race crossed the 48th here. These all to the left side of 48th here there was no homes. This was all open fields. The only home there was, this home here was Mel Nilsson and Harold Nelson and Richard and them there. And then this old home here was there, and that was it.
And on this side it was
It
just
was the Robinsons, right. Hey, whoa, let's see, whoa, Vic. This, well, you can't even tell. Right here, some places where the mill race went underneath 48th, and there was an old bridge. There was an old bridge that went across it, and went across the 48th there, and then it went the canal or the mill race went down and curved and then emptied into the Jordan River. Well, the Jordan River, I mean, right there where it emptied into the Jordan River was a you can't see. Well, this is all behind the old Robinson home. Robinson Hill back here, it goes clear back into the river. The river's right down there. Jordan River's not very far through where all those trees are. That's where I used to hunt pheasants a lot, around in Robinson's Hill here, that was closed to hunting, and we used to have somebody posted so we could keep track of when. What was his name? Mr. Robinson again, Brother Robinson.
I don't remember.
Madge, and anyway, Anyway, what I was talking about though was that where the mill race emptied into the Jordan River, there was a mill. What do you call a mill? A mill, where they used to have it was a water powered mill there that they used to grind up the grains and that kind of stuff for the farmers. It's not a very big place, but it was, and that's where they got the mill race, got its name from. And I remember that old building when it was right there on the edge of the river, and it was, the edge of the river to where it, where like I say, where it dumped into the Jordan, and it was.
I don't know how far it goes down.
Where?
Here.
I think that's dead ends down there. Oh, I don't know. Look. Holy mackerel.
When we detoured the other day, we went back up the hill.
Yeah. What? The river's got to be close, right there, someplace. Right through those trees is where the river is now. Anyway, this was when I was a kid. This used to be we spent a lot of time down here in these river bottoms hunting pheasants. That was one of my favorite things to do. I knew exactly where the pheasants were going to go, where I could find them at night, where I could find them in the morning, and I knew exactly where they were going to go when I scared them up, and me and Specs, and they'd fly down the river someplace and land again. I knew right where they're going to go, and so they didn't. When it come hunting season, they never had a chance because I knew exactly where they were going to be, and they'd go from one place, and me and Specs would have a ball.
So what kind of dog was Specs?
He was an English setter.
Not a German short hair.
No, he was not a German short
He
hair.
was white with black spots on
White
him.
with black spots. He was a
He
good dog.
hunting dog.
Whatever happened to him? He just finally laid down and died. Old age. Specs was a good dog. Good hunting dog too. I loved it. That dog when I'd been lots of hours hunting. I can see that dog on a point in the bushes right now in my mind's eye.
Okay, now where?
Where does this road go behind us?
I don't know. Might hook up to those other
It
houses.
looked like it was a dead
No, I
end
think it hooks up to those other houses.
over there.
Come out.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Is this the road now that Marilyn lives on?
No. This is on
This is
the
right
east
next
side
to
of
the church.
Yeah.
Oh, this is where Brooks Terry lived.
It's a dead end down there.
See, and that's got to be right there, close to next to the river, right there. Probably where those cars are. They're just down there walking by the river. Brooks Terry lived on one of these homes right here on the left side of us. What the hell he's doing? What he's doing? He's a good guy.
Oh.
He was on the High Council when I was state president. Okay, now where?
West on.
That's all we ever did. Go down the Canal Road. Go up and go down the Canal Road. I want to show you. You probably don't know. You've never seen that thing where the flume is, where the flume was. Still there. I see it every time we go past.
We go past the house where I live.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna have to take you a different day.
That's
and go up
another
to
story.
Camas and all
that's another.
Well, you just said you'd look out the window to see if you could see me.
Yep. From the old church.
Yeah. You guys spent many an hour on the Benion's front yard playing ball.
Oh boy, did we ever. There's pull over right here in front of these old homes here, yeah.
That yard.
See that
right.
yard right there? We've made that yard. This was across the street was where Shelby and Cook lived, right there in the red brick home with Shelby and Viola. And this was the
Trip in.
that Trips Inn. There's a Trip owned that, and they lived in the little thing that Dolly and Dick Frame lived in where the jewelry store is now, and Dolly and Dick Frame are the one that got killed on the highway here, got run over. But we used to play here on this lawn right there onto the right, game after playing softball. Right over here where he's got that big block wall now was where Eugene Paxton and Hazel Paxton lived. And that is
Kelly Benion's wife.
you know, just wondered if Kelly was there. And anyway, right here was where on the other side of that wall was between their old home and this home was their garden. Their garden was out there. And he used to raise tomatoes in there a lot. And one night, Gordon Brian Holt and I were out there in that tomato patch, and it was dark. And we thought maybe we'd throw a few tomatoes at the cars that come down 48 South. And we threw a tomato and hit the car, and it was a highway patrolman. And boy, he stopped dead still and turned around, backed up or turned around, and we just laid flat as we could lay in that tomato patch, so they couldn't see us, and the lights were going over his spotlight was going over the top of us, and he never did ever find us, and we never moved, and it was at that time when we realized that it was a highway patrolman that would hit with the Gordon did it, wasn't me.
Yeah.
And anyway, he finally left. Boy, I can still remember them lights going over top of me, laying there dead in that.
We used to play Andy I over the house.
Over the house, yeah.
That's where your grandpa broke his nose, is right over there.
Right here on the playing. We were out here, and I had to go home and take a music lesson. So I jumped on old Blackie, and away we went. And went up and took my music lesson, and when I came back, I just jumped back on the Blackie, and all I did was had a rope around his neck and around his nose, just all in the way we went, coming down 1250 and across the Redwood, across 48th here, and went to jump the ditch.
That ditch right there.
That ditch right there to go into the back where I was going to put the horse while we were playing, and that stupid horse stopped dead still. And I went flying over the top. I was there was nothing to hold on. I had no saddle, no nothing. And I went flying over the top of the horse to hit my face right on a rock, one of these rocks, those rocks over there. They thought I was dead.
This is when Grandma lived in that house.
Yeah, that's when I was living in that house.
Yep. That old home right there, that's been there.
So who did you take music lessons from?
At home.
What from?
I took them home from Vern Mockley when I was there at home. That's from at home. And then, but before that, or no, after that, Marvell and Jones and I used to travel all the way to the McCune School of Music at the up in North Salt Lake. Well, it's up on the hill between actually where the temple is and where the Capitol is. Between them is where the McCune School of Music was. We used to go up here to Redwood Road and catch the Lewis Brothers stage with Irwin driving the bus, and he'd never charge us and would take us in and drop us off at the Lewis Brothers station in downtown there and on the west side of town, and then Marvell and I'd have to walk up Main Street all the way to the McCune School and take our lessons. And I took mine from Dean Alsop, who was also our music teacher at Granite High School at that time.
So you played the trombone. What did Marvell play?
Trumpet. He took trumpet lessons. I took trombone lessons, and then we'd have to walk back down to the Lewis Brothers station, and Irwin would take us back home.
Irwin North.
Irwin North. That's Sis's husband, Jack's dad.
Jack North, yeah.
But that's right there on that lawn. We played many games. Pum pum, pull away, and no. Now what was the games we used to play? Kick the can.
Yeah.
Kick the can.
We played touch football too.
Yeah, we used to. Mildred and I, when we played kick the can, we'd always go get lost together where they couldn't find us, and we'd.
We don't want to know. To the Canal Road now?
Well, yeah, and stop when you go down there. Before you go down the canal road, let's stop at the dairy there. See this home right here on the right-hand side, right? Yeah, that the old one is where
That was
where my mom and dad lived when Belva was born.
Yeah.
And that was
Are we taking too long?
I don't got nothing.
where the stake center is, where David Minerva Frame's home was. It's where Mom and Dad lived for a while there too. There is the home. No, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can talk about this place. This has got too many memories.
We'll go pull in the back of that house.
Too many memories. Too many memories. Too many memories. Too many good memories, though. Too many good memories. There's some bad ones. Oh boy. Victor, you're going to go back here and really bring the memories on, aren't you? Seems we're talking. Those old lions were still on the front of that house. Irwin and Sis wanted to put them there. Look at this. Right? Used to be an old barn right here in front of us. This one. Well, you can keep going, Victor. Go right straight toward up where we. Okay, stop right here. Stop right here. Right. This is the old milk house right here, on the right-hand side where it says Plymouth School. That's where the old milk house was for the dairy, and we used to bring the milk. They used to bring the milk from the cows that were over on the left-hand side of the road. I mean, left of the lane here, and this is where we used to put them to chill it when they would put them in the vats of water. We didn't have ice, vats of water, cold water, and that'd cool the milk down, and then they'd sell the milk from there to whoever they'd sell it to. And then this one to the right, I mean to the left, excuse us, go forward a little bit, Vic. This was added on. This was a modern day thing. This was the old milk house here. And see where
That was the
double
dairy?
door, where the double doors were, where we used to have all the milk on. This is where we used to buy the stuff.
Didn't they sell it out of here?
Yes, we used to sell it
Didn't
right
you-
out of there.
Didn't you? I used to send you kids after milk.
Well, we came here, and then I remember going to the other one too.
And now, right to the left again, where all these equipment is part of where the old barn was. Is where those all that stuff he's got up on that wall, all that stuff, those hubcaps and that. That was the east side of the milk barn, and that's where all the cows were out, all out in the pastures straight to the north of us, and then all to the pasture or where we used to have them, where they used to bring them in, is where they would, and we used to milk them right there in a milk barn. Oh, I can't explain it to you because it was right there. It was all behind there, and there was a stall for each one of the cows, and we used to have them all lined up along there and milk them. First of all, I milk them by hand, and then we had Ramey got smart and got some milking machines, and nothing like they are now, but they were milking machines, and we used to milk them, and I used to come up here and help them milk all the
So
time.
is Ramey the only one that's the one that started
Yep.
the dairy?
Yep,
or
here's
your
the one.
Grandpa Jones.
Oh,
did
Grandpa
too?
Jones did it.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And Ramey took over. Well, Ramey was really running it mostly even when Grandpa was alive and well, because he was still living over in the old home and over here, and he was always, remember walking across that path from there to there, where we saw in the pictures of we got on of my dad's. I've got a picture of that old path that walked across there from Ramey's place to Grandma's place, Grandma and Grandpa's place. But Ramey and the kids, Marvell and Gary, used to walk across that path over here to do all the milking. They're the ones that did it. I didn't have much to do with it then. I was older. But I've had when I was younger. After I broke my nose out there, that is where I stayed with Grandma and Grandpa Jones. I had my own bedroom upstairs in the old home. That's really where I stayed because I couldn't go to school. They wouldn't let me go to school because I looked so bad. Had both of my eyes were swollen shut, and my nose was spread all over my face, and I was a mess. And I used to hide under the kids would come to visit me. I used to hide under the covers until when they'd come in, I'd come out and stick my head out and go boo, scare them all half to death because I was horrible looking.
Yes, he was. I was one of the ones that went to visit him.
Yeah, you did. I remember you coming. Right up there where those railings are in that in the house straight ahead. You see it up there on the south end where the railings are around that house, around the old home. That door was into my bedroom. And I used to come out on that deck all the time up there. And you getting a picture of that, Megan? Mm-hmm. And where I used to come out on that deck in the summertime and just lay and listen to Vaughn Monroe sing Ghost Riders in the Sky from the Squealing Pig on Redwood Road.
Isn't that where Grandma was when she died? Grandma Jones?
Yes. Oh, Grandpa Jones too.
I don't remember Grandpa
I was
Didn't
on
he
my
die in the hospital?
I was on my mission when he died. I don't know where was he. I guess he
I
was.
think he was in the
Was he in the-
hospital.
Was he? Anyway, their home, Amy and Margie's home, was right over here, the other side of where they built the home. And this was all a hayfield. We used to have a hayfield across here, and we had a
This used to be corn. I remember when.
oh yeah. Well, there was corn and hay. Different things that
But they sold out of the dairy when
Yeah.
when Gary and Claudia.
was it now. You know. Anyway, when they were milking cows, they had to come and walk. I can see Ramey walking across there right now, whistling. Ramey could really whistle. And he'd out there milking the cows and work with the cows, and he was always whistling. Not a whistle, but just I don't know what you'd call it, kind of a whistle. Anyway, that was a good time. But right up there, and
That's where they always had the Thanksgiving dinners, was in this house.
oh yeah. Where all the Joneses met. We all got in that house somewhere somehow. And the old sewer gang built dug a part of a basement underneath that thing too.
But that's where the Joneses moved from Bingham.
This is the home they bought.
This is where they moved to, and Grandma Brown was just 18 years old when they moved into this house.
She probably didn't live here too long before she married, right?
Well, she was 23 when she married.
So 5 years or so she lived.
Many times on Christmas morning, we'd come up here and all gather in that home before we went and around to all the other homes around our home and Audrey's home and Cliff's home and Ramey's home. We went to everybody's home on Christmas morning to see what Santa Claus brought. And but I remember one of the highlights of Christmas morning was sitting on Grandpa Jones's knee, on his leg, as he would cross his leg and sit on his foot and hold his hand, bounce us up and down. Oh, a doodly 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 doodly. That's where I got that from. Was from Grandpa Jones. And they'd do that doodly 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 doodly, and then he would give us all a silver dollar for Christmas. A real silver dollar. Oh boy. What else happened in that home? That's actually where Jack grew up, Jack Norris, because Urban and Sis were living there too, when with Grandma and Grandpa. And then when Grandma and Grandpa died, why Ramey and Margie moved into the home. They lived in that home for I don't know how many years.
Well, they died.
Yeah, exactly, until they died. And then I don't know what they did with it after that. And then I guess
I don't know if anybody lived in it after that.
probably not
They
until
made it a
until Connie talked Gary and talked Marvell into selling it to the city for a museum. And the museum and the Taylorsville city bought it. And that's who owns it now, and it's a Taylorsville Museum. But that's the old home where they moved from Bingham into that, and they had no idea where they were going when they all moved, and they loaded them in the back of a, what was it that they said, Mom said, in the back of a truck or something like that, and they were gonna move to a farm in Taylorsville. Grandma didn't know where it was. Grandpa had come and bought it all by himself.
So
But-
was where Claudia and them, was this all part of his property?
Oh yeah, this was all part of his property. Went all the way back to 48 to where 45th is. That was where the cows were. They run them out there in the pasture. All Holstein cows too. Old black and white things. And I never milked any of those by hand. I did help Marvell and Gary and Ramey put the milking machines on. And I remember doing that. Them old cows used to stand there and them old milking machines and milk them things, and they were just eat that old corn silage like they'd eat, and they thought they was in seventh heaven. But I also remember when Ramey milked all the cows by hand too. Had a little stool, and he'd sit on that stool and just fill them buckets full of that. Go over there and set them on the side, grab another bucket, and he'd just move from one cow to the next, whistling all the time. Okay,
Canal Road?
Canal Road, I guess.
Didn't Mike work here? Washing bottles or something?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he did. He did.
I remember that.
Oh, none of this.
And help make carrot juice.
Yeah. We put them in the press, make the carrot juice.
Yep.
I don't know what that was. Whether that was part of the old. No, that's just a Archibald Frame donated that. But this was new. This was the new milk barn right there.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
where I remember the being. The cows was back in
Yeah,
there.
and they were all back in there. Yeah. That's where I used to sit and watch my grandma in the kitchen. Like this, Maggie. His arm, her arm, just sitting on her lap, flipping, back and forth.
Right.
Huh?
She had a twitch.
Had a twitch in her hand. This is the way the hand was going all the
She
time.
had no idea she was just doing
Okay, now let's see, what do we want to do? Which side of the road do we want to stop on here? Because it's got to be going down the Canal Road now. And
it. It bothers me that they've named this Canal Street. It's not Canal Street, it's Canal
We
Road.
used to call it the
okay,
Canal Road.
well, slow down here, Vic. Now. There it is, right there. See that? See that big pile of cement right there? With
On
the
the other side.
on the other side of the canal. You see that? Right back there. Maggie, you got it there?
Mm-hmm.
You can't see it now, but the bushes are in the way. Back up just a hair, Vic, if you can. There, you can see it now. And you see the top of that is got a U shape. That's where the flume is to sit in there. And when it went across the whole canal. But it was just open at the top, and the water, it was an irrigation ditch is what it was. And we used to bring water from over there to water these fields out here. Clyde Barker used to have his tomato patch out here, and it was on that flume that me and Jitters was, and Grandpa Brown and I think it was Brother Tomander, if I remember right, would come down this street, coming down the canal in an old Model T Ford. In my mind's eye, I can see him coming right now. There's a bunch of trees, big old trees on the side of the road here, and I'm sitting right in the middle of that flume, me and
Over
Jitters.
the water.
Huh?
Over the water.
Well, there was no water in it at that time. There was no water happened to be in it. I wouldn't have got in it then if there was water
there
in
water
it.
in the canal?
No, but
though?
water in the canal.
Oh, water in the canal. Oh,
You
yeah.
could have fallen off into
Oh,
it.
yeah, no. I wouldn't have done that.
No,
But anyway, I remember sitting in that flume when Grandma and Grandpa Brown came by there and saw me, and we've been looking all over for you. We thought you were drowned in the canal.
How old were you?
Oh, I wasn't more than maybe about 4 or 5 years of age then. Not very big. Me and Jitters was he led me here. He took
You
me.
wonder why they were worried? You were 4 or 5?
I made it. I'm 84 now, so I made it. I don't know where to go now. There's lots of other places, but they're a long way from here.
like
Like where?
California.
Like California, or like where was it that we?
Well, you can go to the little places we lived after we came back from California.
Where was that? Oh, yeah, just on 48 on
The
12.
little yellow house.
Yeah.
We lived in the greenhouse that's now a yellow house.
What?
On the corner.
There by the church. Your home.
Oh, yeah, that home. There's the old flume right there. Both sides of it. There's even cement on this side. I didn't realize that until now. 2 geese right there, look. This was all an open field here. There were no houses.
On either
This was
side.
all.
And right down here was where it snowed so bad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, see, well, Vic, no, never mind. 48 South would more than once. Well, especially in the one bad winter, the cars had got stuck there, and and it snowed so much that the cars were completely blown in. There was no homes to stop the wind from blowing the snow out of these fields, and it blew them onto 48 South and covered the cars right up. I mean, we were walked to school. When we'd walk to school, we'd walk right over top of the cars. I remember digging down through the snow and digging right onto the top of a car. Of course, the cars back then were the old Model Ts.
No, they were not.
They weren't Model Ts, but they were.
Somebody will put mashed potatoes in
That's where we moved to when we came home from California.
there. Yeah, that's the earliest place.
Right
I
in that little
remember.
home right there.
There wasn't that back part. It was just the
Just a big home out, that little home right there in front. Yeah, that's where, oh geez, that's where I had Lady. Where we had Lady, the hunting dog Lady, short hair.
yeah. She had puppies
And she had puppies. We had them in the kitchen,
She had
in the
Fred.
bathtub.
in the bathtub.
Bathtub.
She had Fred.
Yeah, Fred.
That's the only one I remember.
Yeah, and this lady was
That house
it was
back.
underneath the house. She'd crawl underneath the house. That's the story there now, Megan, that they accused me of that
No, don't tell it.
Tell it.
well, they used to, when I was doing a lot of when I was in the young men program, I was the Explore Advisor, and I was the young men's leader in everything back then, and I used to have a pretty good relationship with some of the young kids in the ward, and we were always getting toilet papered. And I caught some of the kids toilet paper in our house. There, that little house there we were just at. And I thought, well, I'm going to fix them. I remember when I was a kid that we were out at the side of Abe Barker's home. Out the side of his home. And I guess Abe wanted us to. Well, Abe wanted us, we were making too much noise or something, right? So he got his shotgun and he went out there and by the bushes, got out there close to the bushes, and we were just on the other side of the bushes, and he fired off a couple of shells of the shotgun into the air. Scared us all to death. We all went running, and we never stopped running. Anyway, he got rid of us. Well, I'm down here, their kids are toilet paper in my house, and I thought, I'm gonna fix them. So I got my shotgun out, and when I stepped out the door, and blam, I shot up into the air, and the kids went every direction. Well, the next day I got a knock at the door, and there was a power company, a telephone guy, and I wanted to know if I'd seen somebody shooting a shotgun here last night because they had shot the power lines.
What'd you say?
I said, no, I didn't see anybody do it. Which I didn't. I was not telling a fib.
You didn't see anything, you just did it.
And anyway, those kids have never let me forget that, though. Some of them have never let me forget that. Like Val Swenson. Where are we going now? What's?
I just had to put my potatoes in the oven.
So go to the house,
You did what?
Just had to put my potatoes in the oven.
Oh.
to the house on 48 that my mom and all her siblings grew up by the church.
Where? Oh, that's the home that we lived in. Yeah, that's our first home that we bought.
Yeah.
First and only home that we bought. No, not only.
Not only.
Now we're into another one. Oh,
You're into 3
this
homes.
is number 3. Oh my, I'm not sure I want to leave Taylorsville. You know what?
I'm not sure you want to either.
Huh?
I'm not sure you want to either.
In fact, I know I don't want to, but we got to. I've done made that decision now, and it's water under the bridge. She's not very happy. What's she?
Smile, Lisa.
She usually smiles and waves, but she wasn't smiling and waving there. Something's happened. She's not very happy about. She's just been over here at the church house and got a new calling. Oh boy, your mother can tell you all about the memories in this old place. See that? Pull up right behind the home as close as you can get over there, Vic, to where you can see the home, the back of the home if you can. The old pine, I mean, that weeping willow is just gone completely, isn't it?
It's not there.
Huh?
Nope, it's not there.
Anyway, see that
Window.
that window right up there, Megan, right there, the one you can see the. It's right through the trees there, the edge of the trees. On the south side, not the one on the end, on the west side, but on the south side. That's the bathroom right there. And we were, what was it? I can't remember why we were up.
No, we weren't up. I'd just gotten up to go into the bathroom.
Go into the bathroom.
You did too.
And we heard, was it knock at the door or something? And anyway, I looked out that back window. I remember looking out that bathroom window and looking over here at the church. And the church was on fire. And we could see the reflection of the fire on this other side of on the south side of the building where they were, but you could see it was
smoke.
it was smoking. It was burning pretty good. And we ran over there, and I remember David Pearson, I mean. David Pearson was the one that knocked on our door, wasn't it? To tell us, and by that time we had
Tell you to
seen
call
the fire department. And we called, and somebody had already called. I can't remember who was it called, but they'd already called it in. And anyway, that was the fire.
turned off.
And then this other window over here, you can't see it through the tree, was the bedroom
Up a
there.
little bit.
The bedroom that
Deer
I don't know if you can see it going backwards or not. You go back a little. Oh, we're getting about as far as you can go, isn't it?
I think you're gonna be able to see it.
Yeah, you can see it a little bit through the trees there. You can see the shutters off of that window right there, and that's
Right on the end.
that was the girl's bedroom. That was Laurie's bedroom and Janny's bedroom, and then it was where Darren's bedroom was when he
was in
was
the
just a
crib.
little teeny baby in a crib, and that was the window that he crawled out of. And how he went and fell down and slipped over the edge and fell down. There's some cement steps at the bottom of going into
That bottom window was a door that you
Yeah.
could go up.
Yeah, some French doors.
and Mildred was out in front with Laurie and
Sean,
And-
or Darren, Mike,
and
we
Dar-
were
and
working
Mike?
in the yard.
he come around there, and how in the world
He just walked around the house.
Had a plug or a stick
Oh, had a-
sticking out of his plug.
he had
Yeah.
a stick sticking out of his plug that was bouncing up and how he did that and never got hurt, beyond me. And it was right over here in the Bingham ditch that Claude Murray was walking over to the church one day, and Darren and your mother was out there, and your mother was in the ditch, and Darren
No,
was,
I was in the ditch.
She wasn't in the ditch.
oh, it was Darren in the ditch, and it was your mother holding on to him
For dear life.
for dear life, and Claude Murray came by and pulled him out of the ditch.
It's about right here.
Right there, yeah.
This garage wasn't there then.
That's where
And
She
he
was
came
just-
walking up here and so
If she'd have let go of him, he'd have gone in and drowned.
well, he wasn't very big, was he?
No, but he had his coat on.
Yeah,
It
he
made
had a
him
coat
really
on.
Heavy.
That's what you had a hold of, wasn't
I
it?
did. I had a hold of his hood.
Yeah.
And then Grandma Brown came down right after that, and I thought she was going to have a...
She pounded on your dad's chest. You remember that?
Yeah,
Well, which time
went-
was that?
she went crazy that day.
Yeah, she
Oh,
did.
I've seen her crazy that way more than once. There's some times I came home from playing down in your grandma and Mildred's front yard there, or the Benjamin's front yard, and coming home when I should have been home a long time ago, and she met me at the door, just like that.
It used to be one big lawn right here, and we used to play red light, green light, and that's when we dumped Sela out. And he
That's
broke his
what-
leg.
Dumped Sheila out when they weren't supposed to be doing what they were
And you
doing.
weren't home.
No,
we weren't home. Yep. What else had happened in that home?
Well, it's around the side, the garage, the old garage.
They had,
Have
that's where
Have they changed that?
No.
they
it's
got the
still
windows
same.
up there still. You can see the windows that Darren broke out. He was shooting Indians.
No, he took the butt of his gun and broke every window in the garage right
in the
here.
garage. Right there up above it was in those little small windows like that.
See it? He broke every one of them off.
Well,
out.
they were a lot smaller windows than that when they did that anyway.
And I said to him, "What in the world were you doing?" And he said, "I was shooting Indians."
We used to have a thing there by the back door that we kept the night crawlers in.
Yep.
Remember when those kittens got stuck in there? And we didn't know they were in there?
Yep. That's where we had the dog pen right behind the garage there too. That's where we had. This was where Megan, when we had a calico orange colored cat that was just part of the family. And I come home one night
Middle of winter.
in the middle of winter, and the cat was laying here in the road. It had been run over. And I thought, oh gee, how am I ever gonna tell the kids about the cat getting run over? So I went out and buried the cat the best I could in the frozen ground. Went out and buried the cat, and right here, we're on this side of the house. There's a window right there by the door, and I got up and come out, and
The next morning.
the next morning, and there that cat was sitting on the windowsill. And I said, Mildred, didn't I bury that cat last night? And it was a splitting image. The cat I buried was a splitting image of the one that was our cat. And so our cat made it through. It didn't get buried.
That's the cat that had the.
Cat.
Isn't it Laurie that had the kittens in your
Yeah, in my drawer.
drawer?
Bottom drawer. All those drawers were built in.
Yeah.
Built-in drawers in the wall.
This was our bedroom right up here, and that's when I remember one night we sit there in that window and watched all the kids toilet paper our house. We sit and watched them do it, and then when they got pretty much done, I opened the window and hollered out to them. I said, "Now it's time to clean it all up." You should have seen the kids run. They were girls. They were girls in that time. And they took off running like mad. What kind of a roof did he put on there? It's quite a place. It's quite a roof, isn't it?
Slate.
He's
And
fixed
you
that
lived
up,
here
hasn't he?
from what year?
I don't know.
19.
Before Darren was born, right?
1965. We moved here just before he was born because we didn't have enough room in that little yellow house. So we moved here, and then he was born in October of that year. And we lived here until 1976.
You bought this house for,
$11,000.
and you sold it for how much?
33. Thought we'd made a killing. A killing. And now we're paying $400,000 for
For half a house.
half a house. Yeah. And selling our home now for $800,000. Absolutely incredible what it is. 30 or 33? 33, wasn't it?
No, it was just 30.
30? we sold this home for? To those people that are living there still.
No.
Are they still
The
there?
Healy's finally sold it.
Oh, did they sell it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know they
Do you
sold
know
it.
who lives there?
Who lives there?
I like that house. There was lots of things wrong with it, and your grandpa is not a fix-it man.
It
And
didn't
that's
have
what.
that front patio though. When we
No,
lived
it
there.
didn't have that.
There was a straight walk that went right up to the
Yeah.
door.
Yeah. Yeah, they made it a nice place.
And that's when I said that we've got to build a house. It's not big enough really for the number of kids we had by that time either. So we had all 5 of them.
Well, we had Sela too.
Yeah, and we had
Yes, we had
Sela
old
too.
Squealer. Yeah, he was here when we did that house.
So it was pretty full.
So where else you want to go?
Where else do you want to go?
I don't know of any other place else.
Go to your house so you can tell us all about when you built it and everything.
When what?
When you built your house.
Yeah, we could go up there.
What jobs did you have growing
Oh. The job that I had as a young boy, that's my nemesis for today, was sending them beats for Abe. But Abe was my savior more than once. Abe Barker was our bishop, and he was the bishop of our ward for 18 years. He was in the bishopric for 22, I think. And bishop, he was a counselor to Joe Benyon, who was the bishop before him. But Abe was really my, what should I say, Mildred? He was really my savior. Because whenever I needed a job, needed some money, he would always find something for me to do in his yard, his place. He'd always seem to find something for me to do. He would either clean a ditch that didn't need to be cleaned, or I would gather eggs a lot, help Merle gather the eggs and feed the chickens. He would always find me little chores to do or little things to do around the yard that and a lot of times I felt like he just gave me something to do so I could earn the money. And then he'd always take out his wallet and pay me in cash. I never had to pay any income tax because I didn't know what that was.
So was that where you did the beats where the golf course is?
Yes. Oh, yes. Where Four Lakes is?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was beets there and drained, and then there was beets closer down by the river. That's someplace we didn't go. It was down the old Prevella's place. It was down over the end where Vaughn and Betty lived for a long time in the back, way back in the back there.
Betty.
Vaughn and Lois.
Lois lived back
Yeah.
there.
Where was it?
Oh, let's see, where would it be now? Way back there from behind Ray Smith, where he lives now,
Yeah.
where Jerry Millen's home is on 48th, way back there in the fields, clear back on the edge of the cliffs before it dropped down into the river bottoms. And it was up there, they had a home up there on the top, a nice home, really nice home back in there. but it was way back. You had to go back in a long, long lane to get there. And that's where Lois and Bond lived. And anyway, all of those fields around it, clear over to 1175, and then on the other side of 1175 where the golf course is now, they were all part of Abe's fields. And that's where I used to send lots of beets, weeded lots of beets, just worked.
Where all the trailer parks are now.
Yeah. And anyway, that's probably some of the first jobs that I remember. And then I used to have just to take a shovel and clean out the irrigation ditches, just like Victor does on the ditches around here. Cleaned them out. Well, that's what I did when I was a kid. I just cleaned miles and miles, it seems like, of ditches for Abe. He always had an irrigation ditch to clean. And anyway, we did that, and then what did I do after that?
Haul hay.
Oh, geez, did we haul hay? We hauled just tons and tons of hay for Abe too. And we got smart eventually when we would load the hay on the, we'd have to pick up a bale of hay and then pick it up and throw it up onto the trailer, onto the back of the truck. We got so we could pick up a bale of hay, put it up over our head, and then push it and throw it up onto the back of the truck after it's had 3 or 4 tiers of hay already on it. And we got so we could really throw a bale of hay. And I can't even lift one now. And then we had got smart. We'd take two pitchforks. Two guys would take a pitchfork, and then we'd take 2 of us to take the pitchfork and stick it in a bale of hay, one on one end and one on the other, on side by side, and we'd pick the hay up, the bale up, and throw it clear up over top of our heads with the pitchforks onto the truck. We used to load it that way. We did that because we could load the hay even back, and we wouldn't make a bad load out of it that'd fall off, so we'd have to reload it. And we've hauled lots of hay from up on the dry farms, and then topping beets, and not just the sinning beets. Sinning beets is what was hard on the back, but topping beets was, you had a beet hook, a beet knife, and it had a handle on it with you always had a leather strap around your arm so you could hold it, where you could drop the knife and the knife would stay there. Anyway, you take that knife, and it had a long blade on it about that long, and then on the end of that blade was a hook about that long. It was in the shape of it, and you take that hook, you take that beet knife, and you'd pick up the beet off of the ground with a hook, take it up, put it on your leg, take the knife and chop the top the what?
Leaves.
Yeah, the leaves, the head off of the. We would chop, so then you just throw them in a pile along the side, make a big long row of top beets, and then it had to come by in a truck. It had the sides on it, and you'd have to pick up them beets and throw them suckers into the beet, then into the truck. There was nothing to pick them up. There were no machines that done anything like that. It was all done by hand. And we'd get a truck load of beets that the truck not only was the bed full, it was about 3 or 4 feet high all the way around, all full of beets, and then we'd make it like a mound over the top of it, yeah. And then the beet truck could take off to the beet factory to unload the beets, and there were beets that keep falling off on the side of the road. And you go down during the beat time, you go down a road, down Redwood Road, and there'd be beets laying all over on the side that had fallen off the beet truck.
Do you know what kind of beets they were?
Sugar beets.
Sugar beets. That's how we got our sugar. They take them down to the.
We used to take those sugar beets and clean them all off, and take a pin and then cut them off into a piece of just a piece of the beet, white, just pure white. Stick it in your mouth and just suck on it and suck on it. It's sweet. That's a sugar beet.
They were about the beets are about this long.
Anyway, we hadn't seen a beet on the side of the road for years, and we went to Poland. We went to Poland to pick up Steve, and we were riding down the street when in Poland, and there was a stupid beet on the side of the road. I said, "Stop!" And I got out, and sure enough, it was a sugar beet laying on the side of the road just like they used to be when I was a kid. So I put that sugar beet in my suitcase, and took it, and I put it in my suitcase, and we went to the, what do you call it? The station where you have to go through and be checked? Customs. And they had a dog going through all the suitcases to see if there's anything. And I thought, oh, geez, I've been had. And your mother was so mad at me, she was ready to shoot me. I was trying to bring that beet home. Because I wanted to show my kids a sugar beet. Nobody had ever seen a sugar beet before.
Did you get caught?
Nope, he didn't find him. We didn't. We lucked out. I brought the sugar beet home. And now you can go to Idaho right now, and you can go around where Paul grew up in Idaho, over around American Falls, and they still grow lots of beets up there now, sugar beets. Anyway, so much for the sugar beets. After the working in the beets and working for Abe.
Well, you did the turkeys too for Abe.
Oh dear, oh turkeys. I've said more than once. There's only one thing that's dumber than a dumb. That's smarter or dumber than a dumb chicken. That's smarter than. There's only one thing dumber than a dumb chicken, and that's a smart turkey.
That way you don't like turkey now.
Turkeys are. We used to just those turkeys. Well, I tell you, we'd spend lots of. It's right. You're right, dear. I spent a lot of hours, days in working with the turkeys. Abe would buy them in little chicks, and then we used to have to care for them in the coops, the little chicks. We used to make sure that the hutches had their warming pens, and so that the little chicks could. Well, this was the same thing with the chickens as well. When you'd have the chickens, but the turkeys would put them in those little hutches and keep them warm at night and taken care of, and then they'd grow up, and we'd have to feed them in the coops. Then when they'd get to be about the size of a chicken now, of a regular hen, we'd take them, put them out in the hutches, they called them, out into the back of the coops there, in the back of where the golf course is now, and they had rows and rows of turkey hutches. And
Like what you see in Ephraim.
and we used to, then those turkey hutches would have to go up and down those turkey hutches and feed those turkeys mash and wheat and all kinds of things to make sure they. We used to have a water wagon that would go up and down and make sure that the turkeys had water in their watering troughs, and I did that for all day. I did that lots. And then it had come time to de-beat the turkeys. Turkey would pick on each other, but turkey had a little sore of any kind that the others would pick on it to where it was just just an open wound sore to where they'd actually eventually die. So the way they got around that was that they would debeak the turkey. Instead of that, a turkey has a beak like this, like 2 fingers like that. Well, we'd take and cut the end of the top beak off, just on a little machine we have it. It was a hot blade, and you put the beak on there and operate it with your foot, and snap it down on and cut the blade off and burn it off the end, so the blood would singe it off, and and that's the way we'd debeak them and then just put them back in their hutches, and that way they couldn't peck each other. And we'd make sure they're debeaked. When they were debeaked and everything, then they were ready to go out onto the out on the range, out in the turkey farms, out on the way you have to, out where Kearns where Kearns town is now. We used to have that. Abe owned part of that, or at least part of it, and before that was an army base, Kearns Army Base, and they had all placed off with asphalt roads, just like each little block, the blocks of it were blocked off with that. And then when the army left, why they just left that, and so we'd go down there. Abe would go down there and put a fence around those blocks, and we'd turn the turkeys out there in those blocks, in the fences and inside those fences, and that's where they'd keep them until they were big enough to sell. Well, that's one thing. Or we had them out where the dry farm is now, where we're moving now to out in Harriman was all dry farm, and we had places. Abe had places out there where we just run them loose in the rain. They just run loose, and they just stay together. And we Abe would hire a turkey herder that'd live in a camp. He'd live in a little turkey camp, with a little trailer camp, about as big as that little cool box right there, about half the size of that. That's what he'd live in, and he'd take care of the turkeys. But when he would take a weekend off or something like that, why, guess who would have to go out and take care of the turkeys? That was me and Blaine Nichols and David Morris and Ray Dillon, and we used to go out on the range and take care of those turkeys out at the dry farm. And it's kind of fun to do, because turkeys they stay in bunches. They'd never go off. If a turkey went off, the whole bunch went off. If a turkey went over a cliff, the whole bunch went over the cliff. What I say, there's nothing as smart as a smart turkey. Anyway, so then we'd have to load the turkeys up with hooks. We'd hook them with a big hook on their leg and hook them and catch them that way, and then put them in a crate, throw them on the back of a truck, and we'd haul them off to market. And they'd made grundles of money off of turkeys. Beets and turkeys was his thing, and I took care, and I worked in them all. After the turkeys, then that was actually went to work at Safeway Produce, wasn't it? Worked there at night time. Worked there at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was going to high school. I worked there, and then after that then I went to Logan. Went to Logan to school. I didn't work up there, just played. Did a lot of playing up there. We ought to go up there, and I can tell you lots of stories up there. And then from there, we went to therapy school.
You went on your mission.
Yeah, I went on my mission first.
You worked for Brown Tie for a while?
Oh yeah, I did too. I worked for Brown Tie while I was going to school.
Here
At Utah Appa University. for all those years that I did that after I went to Logan. Went to Logan for 2 years, then I went on my mission, and then I come home from mission, got married, and couldn't go back to Logan because Mildred had a job here, and she was the only one that was making any money in our family. And then we went to Leland and Ralph would let me work in the summer times for them in the plumbing business. But I tell you, that was hard work though, because they gave me all the dirty jobs. All the dirty jobs.
That's where you lost your wedding ring, right?
Yep, and then underneath the governor's mansion by the Shriners Hospital is where that ring still is today. And then, of course, after that, I went to therapy school, and then from there I went to primary hospital, and then from there I went on my own until I quit, until I retired.
Yeah, as soon as he got out of therapy school, graduated, we had rented a house across the bay in Oakland.
You were going to stay there.
Yeah, and we were going to stay there.
Took a job there. I accepted a job there. And then Rulon Francis called me on the telephone, offered me a job on the phone. He says, "Aren't you from here? And didn't you serve a mission?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I got a job for you here at Primary Hospital." That was the only interview I had. So I turned that other job down and made them mad at me. Man, they were upset at me because I'd committed to do that, take that place. And it was a brand new hospital they wanted me to run right off the scrap path. I'd have still been in California if we'd have taken that job.
That's a good thing.
Life
you did.
would have been so different. All of our lives.
Sure would have.
I want to be here, Grandpa.
And then we came home, went to primary hospital, and you know the rest of the
You
story.
worked at primary for
17 years. 17 years.
See, when you quit primary,
then
wasn't
I
it
s-
when Mike was about ready to go on his mission and he didn't have any income for a while?
He didn't.
We didn't. We had, I don't know why.
I still don't know how we did that.
I don't either. Paid for him and never used any of his money in savings either. When he come home, we gave him all of the money he had in savings for his mission, gave it to him, and it's when he bought that first pickup truck that he had. I don't know how we did it. How did we do that?
Paid your tithing.
Yeah, the Lord provides.
Yeah, we did to pay our tithing. You did go up to the on Friday mornings up to the hospital and got paid there at the clinic.
But that was after I left the hospital.
Yeah, that's when it all happened. You and Don started working on your own.
Yeah.
And that's when we didn't have any money.
Oh yeah.
Except-
That's right. Yeah.
Except that those checks that you'd get from the hospital when you'd go to the clinic.
Yep. Everything that we made in the therapy business that we started, we put back into it.
Until you started making money. How long did it take you?
Finally, but there was a good chunk of one that first year that we had no money coming in at all except those.
That first year, there was about 6 months we had nothing.
And you just moved here too.
Yeah.
We had nothing coming in. Anyway,
Is that when Grandma bought you the clock?
But what?
Bought you the clock?
Yeah.
yep. Grandma put the patio up in the back too, the cover.
So what about church jobs?
Oh boy, you don't want to hear about that. church jobs was many. There's only one job in this church that I did not enjoy serving. What do you think that was?
I know what it was, because I didn't like it either when I was in
Well,
it.
there was one of I liked it, but one was tough.
Cub Scout.
Cub Scouts. I was the Cub Master. I disliked that with a passion. And then the other one was when I was Elders Quorum president. And the Elders Quorum president, I didn't. I mean, I liked that, but it was hard. It was hard. Elders Quorum presidency was not my favorite calling. And then, but then I got most of the time in between that. I taught Sunday school when we first came home from the mission, and then I was put in the young men's program.
No. Before that, you were Sunday school superintendent.
Oh yeah, that's right, I was.
So did you have callings when you were in California?
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with the Deacons Quorum. I was Deacons Quorum advisor. And when we took the deacons over the top to an outing at Half Moon Bay one day, you don't remember that, I guess you would. The sun was shining. It was an absolute beautiful day in Palo Alto and in Mountain View where we lived. Remember that? And you drove over the mountain and to Half Moon Bay, where I took the kids for an outing that day, and it was cold and miserable and raining and wet. And we decided not to stay there after a while and came back over the mountain, and it was warm and sunshiny. Craziest weather. I'll never forget that. And then, I was I worked in the young men's program, youth in the church, for a total of 22 years.
All I ever remember you doing. So
It
you
was-
were in
It was either Explorer Advisor, the Priest Quorum Advisor, and I was released from one, and Bishop Hall called me in one day and asked me if I would be willing to serve as the Priest Quorum Advisor at the same time I was serving as the Explorer Advisor. I told him he was crazy. How can you give me two jobs like that? Two major jobs. You want me to do them both? And he said yes, and so I took it. And it wasn't till, within a year, the church come out and combined the two callings together. And so I did that for a number of years, and then I was put in the bishopric, and when I was in the bishopric, I was over the youth program, counselor to Ron Peterson. I was over the youth then. That's when the second counselor had the youth. And then from there I went from there. I was released from that and went right back into the young men's program, and then I was called back into the bishopric by Everett Mackey as a counselor to him. And then one day he called me into the office, and he says I've got a problem. We don't have anybody that can be the young men's leader here, the young men's president, the young men's leader in the ward. He says, I'm thinking seriously, I think I'm gonna want to release you from the bishopric and put you into the young men's program. So I got put back into the young men's program that way. After I was released from the bishopric and put back into there. And then finally, Ken Smart's the one that got smart when he was bishop, and finally decided I'd been in the youth program long enough. And so he called me in and released me, and boy, I tell you, that broke my heart. I thought that the world was coming to an end when I got released from, no longer had anything to do with the youth. And then what did they do to me? Wasn't long and they put me in as the high priest group leader. And then after I'd been in there for a while, I decided there was only one thing different between a high priest and a priest, and that was their age. And we did. And then I served in as a high priest group leader with Lynn Bala and oh, what's his name? My goodness, the funny guy lived over there. Richard Hoover and Gene Skillicorn. That was a fun job. I enjoyed that job. We had some good times. And then from there I went in as bishop. Called me in as bishop from there, and of course from there I went in as stake president.
So you served as bishop for
2 years and 2 months.
and then you were
And when President and Elder Haight interviewed me, and he called me in, he says, you've asked him, the way he put it, he says, called you to preside over this stake. And I says, Elder Haight, I've only been a bishop for 2 years. How can I wanted to just didn't get, so what's that got to do with it, he says. What's that got to do with it, he says. So anyway, I was put in as stake president and did that for 9 years, and then after that I went back into the high priest a couple of times.
you went on your mission.
You went on your mission.
Oh yeah, we went on a mission too, didn't we? To Hong Kong. Yeah, don't forget that one. That was one of the choice times of our life.
And you were branch president there.
Yep, was branch president there and a counselor in the branch presidency too at the same time. Branch president on the weekday group and a counselor on the Sunday group. That was a good time. That was a great time in our life. Came home with 400 daughters that we didn't know we had before we left. And the reason why I say that is because they all called us Mom and Daddy, didn't they? Mom and Daddy Brown. Very seldom was we called Elder Brown or President Brown. It was always Mom and Daddy. I even sent a little thing on the email just the other day to one of our sisters, Annie, on her birthday or something, and she sent me a little thing back. I didn't ever tell you. And she says, "Oh, it's so good to hear from you, Daddy Brown. Tell Mama Brown hello." Anyway, it was a good time of our life. Came home and then served in the high priest with Rieger for a while, and then all that time I went to the temple. Started serving in the temple. Served in the temple for 14, 15 years, wasn't it? And had to be released because of my health. And there I is today, doing nothing now because of my health.
What about your mission?
Oh, yeah, I did go on a mission, didn't I?
By yourself.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's a whole nother time of my life. Called down in the south, the good old Mississippi. Served there for 2 years. Loved every minute of it. Every minute of it. Served in one district, one zone, you'd call it now. The whole time I was there. Never moved me out of that one town. I served in every town in the zone or in the district. And then he put me in as the presiding elder. That we called them supervising elders at that time, instead of zone leaders now. And I was in that for 6 months of my mission, and had to have a car then. So I had a car in my mission then, and I had a car until the older couple that we had called was served in there until they run in the back of me and wrecked my car. Had to buy that car myself. Church didn't participate in that at all. Now the church has their own cars. But I bought a car for, I think I paid a couple $100 for it. That's a pretty good little car.
So did you have success on your mission, or was it?
What?
Did you have a lot of success on your mission?
No. What do you mean by success? Baptisms?
I don't know what you call what you say
If
is
you
success.
if you're calling a baptism the criteria for success, I had very few baptisms. I had, what did I have? We had 1, 2. I was thinking now. I had 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 4, if I remember, I'd only had about 5 or 6 baptisms in my mission. 4 of them were in one town. 4 of them were in one town, and that was in the town of Greenwood, Mississippi, where Elder Ellis and I opened the town to missionary work. We opened it up. I remember going in there and finding us a place to live. And then we had nothing to go on, nothing. We didn't have any members. We didn't have nothing. It was just the 2 of us, and so we started tracting. And we come into a lady, it was somebody we tracked it out, and says, well, I know somebody here in town that's a member of your church. Well, if it is, tell us. We don't know about it. And they told us about the Firquins. And that was, so we went and looked them up, and sure enough, they were members, and were they ever glad to see us, because he was an Army recruiter, Navy recruiter, and they were all, but she was his wife. Elnora was the only one that was a member of the church. So we started talking to them and everything. We ended up baptizing Ernie and 2 daughters, Sally and what was the other one's name? The one that had. Anyway, we baptized them and started holding a Sunday school in their home, and we baptized another lady in there, and we finally had a pretty good group. One of the guys was a drunken attorney. If we could have got him sober, we'd have baptized him.
The Firquins, when we went to California for him to go to Stanford, they took us under their wing because they had moved out there. And until we found an apartment of our own, they were more or less taking care of us.
Yeah, they were. Ernie and Elnora, 2 great people. And ended up having one of their daughters, their baby daughter, lived in our stake when I was stake president.
Really?
Didn't know it. Lived down here in the River Bend ward.
How'd you
She's
ever
the one
find
that
out?
contacted me and found me, and I went down to visit them, and they were not. So we talked to him for a while and called Elnora and told her we'd talk to her and that the bishop was going to follow through, and I don't think everything ever happened with him. What was that? It was the one that was born while we were there in. Oh, well, you weren't there. It was me in Greenwood. She was born when I was on a mission there in Greenwood, Mississippi. This one that ended up living in our stake. I don't know what her name was. Can't remember what her name was. Anyway, I just lived in. We just was in Natchez. I was in Jackson. I was in Greenwood. I was in Meridian. I was in Columbus. I was in Laurel. I was all in Mississippi, all in those towns, in central Mississippi. Okay, I'm done.
Just one more question. When did you develop your testimony?
Oh boy, when did I develop my testimony? I don't remember of not having a testimony, but I remember the times of some experiences that I had in which it was just like somebody hit me over the head and told me it was true. One of them was when I was in Meridian, Mississippi, when I first arrived there. I'm sorry to say that I had not read the Book of Mormon completely full, from cover to cover, before I went on my mission. That was just something that they didn't stress like they do now. And so I didn't. I had read parts of it here and parts of it there, and I really didn't understand really what the Book of Mormon was until I got in Meridian, Mississippi, and I read the Book of Mormon cover to cover. My companion made me do it, and I remember just sitting in that one day and reading that book, and it's like somebody hit me over the head with a club, saying, you know something? This is really true. And from that point on, I have never been without a good, firm testimony of the gospel. My testimony has grown because of my time I've served in the different callings in the church. Especially, I think the calling that really strengthened my testimony as much as any of it was when I was bishop. That was just a hard one, but yet it was a very spiritual one. But when did I really gain a testimony? It was at that time, and since that time I very seldom have not read the Book of Mormon, almost every year. I just determined in my life, the way my life has gone since then, with our life, our married life, and our life together, is Mildred and I have both been very active in the church all of our married life, and we've just never doubted that the church was not true. And so, as far as my testimony is concerned, my testimony is firm that God lives, that Jesus is the Christ, that we do have a living prophet on the earth, and there is no question in my mind that when we cross the veil to the other side, that we'll just have it confirmed to us that all of that we've been doing is right and correct, and our ancestors are going to be there waiting for us, saying, well done, or you could have done better, whatever. But anyway, that's the way my testimony has been. I'm a living prophet, and of a callings in the church. I know that they're called, they're inspired and called from our Father in heaven, because I've had many of them have been really brought that point home to me. One of them was when I called a bishop, Max Hamilton in Paradise Ward. I fought that. I said, I can't call him. He's too old. He's in his 70s, almost 80. And here I am thinking about calling him to be a bishop. And I talked myself out of it, talked to my counselor, talked to President Wakefield, talked to President Bambro, and we just hammered around, and all of us thought he was too old. But we just kept coming back to him, and one day it was just like somebody had hit me over the head with a hammer. When the Lord calls somebody, I remember President Elder Haight, when he called me to be stake president, I asked him a question about my counselors, because I was thinking of having a counselor in one end of the stake and another counselor in the other end of the stake, and I couldn't put it together. It just was not working together. So I said something to Elder Haight about it, that I wanted to call Ken Smart and I wanted to call Preston Wakefield. But Ken was in the same ward as I was in, and
You didn't even know Wakefield.
Yeah, I didn't even know him, and I wasn't comfortable with with not calling somebody from the east part of the state. And I mentioned that to Elder Haight while he was here, and he said to me, he says, President, when the Lord calls somebody, it doesn't matter where they live. And from that time on, we were considering Max Hamilton to be the bishop, I remember what Elder Haight said. And I remember saying to myself, when the Lord calls somebody, it doesn't matter how old they are. And so we called him to be bishop, and he was an incredible bishop. And he served 5 years, and we released him, and what was he? Within a year he died.
Yeah.
He was, his wife is still alive, still lives over there in the same house, as far as I'm concerned. Maxine Hamilton. Anyway, so that's my testimony. My testimony is still there and still strong, and it's the only thing I remember when I asked my dad that same question, and he said, your testimony of the gospel is the only thing that matters. And that's true. Your testimony of the gospel is the only thing that matters.
Very true.
Amen.
Amen. Well, thanks for doing this with us, Grandpa.
Did you learn anything?
I did. I learned lots, but I just wanted to tell you that because you did this with us, there'll be so many people that will cherish this forever. So thank you for doing this.
I was going to ask you, what are you going to do with that now?
I'm going to give it to all my cousins, and they're going to be able to share their kids, and I'll be like, this is my grandpa. And that's something that I know I'll cherish forever, and I just wanted to thank you for letting me do this for you.